Teamsters aren't running very quick.
Good. Okay, just a reminder, the meeting is being webcast. A reminder that you should refrain from making any defamatory statements. Acknowledgement of Country. I acknowledge that we are meeting on the ancestral land of the Ngunnawal people. I recognise the Ngunnawal as the traditional custodians and pay respect to the elders of the community and their descendants. Would you all stand for the prayer, please? I was instrumental in introducing this prayer into council, so I apologise for my struggling finding it. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessings upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. Declarations of interest.
We've got an apology from Councillor Jones.
An apology from Councillor Jones. Someone like to move and receive the apology? Thank you. Councillor Turner and Councillor Reid. All those in favour? Those against, declare it carried unanimously. Confirmation of the minutes. The last meeting. Declaration, oh sorry.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest, please, in item 6.3, the development for Bureau Place in Yass, which is part of my husband's business and development. So I will be leaving the chambers for that whole section.
Thank you, Councillor Potter. Any further declaration? Councillor Reid.
I'm just declaring a non-significant, non-pecuniary interest in the sale of artwork from the Lions Club, simply because I've been helping in the process, but I'm not a member of the Lions Club. So.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Any others? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes. Minutes have been circulated.
Before we go to the minutes, 9.2, I left the room, and my friend here voted my name down, so I voted for it.
Okay, well I can attest to the fact that you did rise and leave the room, Councillor Burgess. We'll make the appropriate amendment. Any further questions? Someone like to move the adoption of the minutes with that amendment? Councillor Burgess, Councillor Potter. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried.
Through you, Mr Mayor, we've got a couple of late items, one being your mayoral minute, and the second item relates to a tender matter that only came to our attention today. So we just need to introduce them through the meeting as urgent business. So we just probably need a move and seconder for both of those.
Okay, you've all had the opportunity to read the mayoral minute. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Turner and Councillor Abbey. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. A late report in connection with the purchase of the patching truck. There is a recommendation.
Just confidential. We'll just deal with it. So we'll just deal with it with all the other reports that need to go into closed session.
Move it be accepted as a
Late report. Thank you, Councillor Turner. Have a second. Councillor Potham. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Okay. I'll go on now to reports to council. 6.1, 7 Oyston Place. There's a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation?
Get the ball rolling, Mr Mayor, yes, certainly, I'll.
Thank you, councillor Turner. So have a second, councillor Reid. Any discussion? Any questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? Declare it carried. It's easy. 6-2.
Again, I'm happy to move that, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Councillor Burgess. Any discussion? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. This is getting too easy. 6-3.
Just read.
Thank you, councillor Cotton. I'd like to move the recommendation.
I'll move
Councillor Reid,
I'll
thank you.
move that as a motion, thank you.
Have a seconder?
Happy to do that if no one else is doing it.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Any discussion? All those in favour? Councillor.
Through Mr Mayor, I just find it always a little bit strange that that part of this recommendation is the maintenance responsibility period for the developer be reduced from 5 years to 12 months from the date of the issue of a subdivision certificate. I think it's been explained to me that this decision has been made in the interest of consistency, and I accept that. And I think we do need to be consistent in our approach. But I think that passing after 1 year, the responsibility for this open space back to council, back to the ratepayers, back to the residents around there, I think sort of doesn't augur well from my point of view. And I think if we are having a draft developer control plan at some stage, I think this particular item needs to be looked at very, very closely. I agree that 5 years, which was the original one put down here, is perhaps too much, unless it's a very complex matter, as was explained previously. But I do think it should be more than 1 year. I'd just like to make that point, and the reason why I'll be voting against the recommendation.
You want to move an amendment?
No, I'm happy with that.
Any further speakers for or against? I'll put the motion in. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron. Councillor, return to the chamber, intact. We're on item 6.4, development consent, residential subdivision Isabel Drive. Someone like to move the recommendation?
Move that in, and so Dane suggests that we might correct the spelling error that's residential. Thank you.
Well spotted. Councillor Turner? Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burgess? Any discussion? Councillor Cameron?
Through you, Mr Mayor, just a question, it was mentioned by the person in the public forum that this is part of a 5-part master plan. Is that the case? Do we, I could have asked that question of the respondent, but is that the case, or do we know that it's going to be a 5-part master plan with 200 houses, or is that just a statement that the person made?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'm not aware of a master plan having been undertaken for the site, but I know that it is being undertaken in various stages.
It is being undertaken in various stages. Okay. Do the people who are doing the first 3 parts, do they own the second 2 parts?
Chris?
I'm not
yeah.
aware of.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, councillor Cameron. Any further questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Hear it carried. Item 6.5, subdivision 34 Isabel Drive. There is a recommendation.
Come on, Mr Mayor, I might as well do the same.
Well,
Sorry, was it 6.5 or 6.6?
oh, it's fine.
My thought was 34 Isabel Drive. This is the one with the.
Third commencement development.
Councillor, just to remind you that this is a subdivision, but we're looking at adjusting the location of the roundabout to get a better flow for the traffic.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to bring to the councillors' attention that we do have an alternative recommendation being put forward. After the report was completed, some additional information was provided by the applicant and a deferred commencement condition is no longer required.
So we delete 1.
Sheree, you've got, that's, yeah.
So basically, instead of issuing a deferred development consent, we're going straight to a development consent. The information that was subject to the deferral has been provided and is satisfactory.
Put her up on the screen.
Does it still need to be conditional development consent?
Still happy.
Oh, it's for a roundabout.
Okay, still happy? Councillor Turner, do we have a seconder? Councillor Burgess? Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare it carried. 6.6, dwelling house, dual occupancy, 838 Mountbatten Drive, Manor. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move that?
I'll move that.
Councillor Reid? You have a seconder? Councillor Kirsten? Reid? Any discussion? Any questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Six, 7. Development application, rural subdivision, 1023 Talagandra Lane, Gundaroo.
Recommendation.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Burgess. Any questions? Any discussion? Put the recommendation. All those in favour? Unanimous. So declare the motion carried. 6.8 Mountbatten Lions Club, 10 Gardworth.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, councillor Puffin. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Reid. Any questions? Any Discussion, any comments?
Only one, Mr. Mayor, I really would like to see this initiative taken to the other large tanks in the Yass Valley, particularly including the silos out at the Yass Junction. They're not a thing of beauty, but they can be made such and could easily be part of a tourist attraction. So I believe the Lions should be encouraged and complimented for their initiative. And if they want to tackle something bigger, let's do it.
I'd just like to add through Mr Mayor as well that I think this project is extremely exciting, and I want to commend Councillor Reid on all the work that he and everybody has done to bring this up to where it is today. And I've read through the whole proposal and it's extremely exciting, so hopefully we can get some grants and things happening to make this happen. It's really exciting. Yeah.
Thanks, any further discussion, further comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. 6.9, review of council sporting facilities. Again, we have a recommendation. You're going to move it.
I'll move it to get things going.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Thank you, councillor Reid. Questions?
I just have a question on the recommendation number 2, that the prescriptive sports field lights per user fee charge of $10 per field per hour be applied to both annualised and casual hires in the 22-23. I'm the president of the Roundabout Little Athletics Club, and we don't use the lights. So, I mean, that would be something that I would need to ask, you know, if that would be applied to. I know that some user groups wouldn't be using the lights, but they have access to the lights. So, I'd just like for that to be taken into account and to be as a part of the consultative process with the user group, that they be asked if they actually use the lights or not.
Do you want to comment, Mr.
Mr. Mayor, so part of setting up of the lights, we have a system where we can actually control and who turns the lights on and how long they've turned the lights on. So our fees would only ever be charged for people who actually use that facility to turn the lights on, because then we can track how much light they've used, when they've used it, and invoice people as per what they've actually used. So if you don't use it, there'll be no fee at all.
Even if you have a club access
Even
pin?
if you have a club access pin, there'll be no fee for the access pin. There'll be fee for usage based on the amount of time the lights are turned.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Just a question, Mr Mayor. It talks about consultation. What's the time period of consultation, and how many groups will be consulted?
Through you, Mr Mayor. So if we're looking for the 23-24 plan, so we won't be bringing that to council until April next year. Council has just agreed to continue the Sports Council. So consultation will be via the Sports Council, but it will also be with any clubs that currently use the fields and any organisations that will put it out for any organisations that want to use our fields. We have a number of organisations that come to us every now and again seeking annualised user charges as well, so we would reach out to those as well. But we have a plan for consultation with all the clubs over the next 12 months leading up to the 22-23 financial plan anyway.
So there'll be no increase in charges, there'll be no increase in charges for this current financial year?
We're not proposing an increase in charges for the 22-23 financial year.
Through you, Mr Mayor, when we've completed the consultation, we'll be bringing those as part of the normal fees and charges that council will need to sign off on before we place it on exhibition. So there'll be a consultation process and leading up to the preparation of that 23-24 budget, and then there'll be another opportunity while that budget's on exhibition for people to make more formal representations on the actual budget at that time.
Sorry, I just have one more question. with the breakdown of the annual cost to operate the facilities, I just note that O'Connor Park, Yass, with 1 field and 7 netball courts, is significantly lower than the Murrumbateman Recreation Ground that has only 1 round oval and 4 sandhorse arenas, which I don't believe are maintained. So we've got $48,000 per annum for Murrumbateman Recreation Grounds, whereas O'Connor Park is $32,000. Can we see a breakdown of how these figures have been allocated? Because there's no irrigation to Murrumbateman Oval, it is just mowed every fortnight. And the lighting, I don't believe, gets turned on hardly, maybe once a week for an hour or 2.
Yes, through Mr. Mayor. So one of the things that this has raised and why we haven't made any recommendations out of this report is anomalies such as that, that we have a $32,000 for the O'Connor Park, and just about all of that is in lighting costs. And then Murrumbateman Rec Ground came out at $48,000. There was some anomalies where with different parts of the budgeting process, it would seem that we have a lot of rubbish allocated to Murrumbateman Rec Ground. We don't think that's actually correct. We think we've got issues with our system, and so that's the reason why we've said we're not going to do this financial year. Originally, this came from a previous report to council last year where we got asked to do it, to review it for the inclusion in the 22-23 financial year. But we had so many anomalies and our data tracking was that bad. We know we've spent this amount of money. We're not confident where it's actually been allocated is correct, because we've spoken about the systems we have at council at the moment, some of the challenges we're having with tracking where money is actually spent against the project. So we're working through that, and that's why we've said no, we're not going to do it this financial year because some of these don't seem right. I think from that $48,000 from memory, there was about 18 or 19,000 of that was just in rubbish collection fees, which we think have not been allocated correctly.
No, there's only 1 bin.
There's 19 bins at Murrumbateman Rec Ground.
19? Okay, so apologies.
Yeah. So
I've only seen 1.
it's one of those ones where I just looked at it and went, this is a bit strange. So there's a few strange ones that this throws up. So O'Connor Park pays more for lighting than Walker Park. Don't know why. So there's something wrong there as well, which is why we've said, hey, look, we'll go to the 23-24 as opposed to the 22-23 and then look back through the systems. We know we spend this money on the Parks and Rec area because the people who can allocate money to Parks and Rec are the ones who allocate it there. We just don't think it's allocated accurately between each of the grounds when the finance stuff goes into the system. We think it goes into the system the right way, but it comes out the wrong way, which is a drama we've been having, which is why if you ask Lynette, she'll tell you that she's had a lot of time working with the management system to try and fix some of these challenges that we're having. Solve it in some of these things, which is, again, why we've said, hey, stop for 12 months before we go to the next thing.
Question. Through the General Manager to the Director of Infrastructure, are we also looking at electricity charges overall? All we're doing here is looking at the lights on the sporting ovals. But I know from Murrumbateman, there's a lot of usage of electricity by campers, for instance. Who pays for that general electricity bill?
Through Mr. Mayor, this includes the general electricity bill for the site for each one of them. Again, we can't distinguish between the actual lighting charges and the general electricity charges. Murrumbateman Rec Ground is a challenge compared to some of the others because it has not just sporting uses, it has the men's shed, it has field days, it has a number of other uses that go on at that site. And with the data that we had, we couldn't separate that out. And so that's why we have some of these anomalies. And we need to get to the bottom of those, which we couldn't do within the last couple of months since the last report. But given council asked for a return report, we provided an update on where we are at the moment, and trying to then work through in the next year we are considering some other options on how we might track electricity usage and water usage across the board.
Thank you.
Everyone happy? Ready to vote? I'll put the motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. 16, request to name Walker Park Grandstand. There is a recommendation.
Now, I'm happy to move this. I've worked alongside Kenny on many occasions, and I can't think of a more worthy recipient or a recognition of the work that he's done for the youth and sport, particularly up at Walker Park. And it's not only been youth and sport, it's been Relays for Life, it's been a whole bunch of things that we've done up there. York was a little bit before my time. However, I'm prepared I'm prepared to accept that he's a very worthy recipient also.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Reid? Any questions? Any comments? Councillor Abbey?
Just to say to thank Mr. Clayton for his representation. He painted the picture well, and there was a lot of detail in there that I certainly wasn't aware of. So I think it's appropriate the stands are named with two names.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. The investment and borrowings report. There is a recommendation. Reid, Councillor Reid, Councillor Potten. Any discussion? Any comments? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Six 12, policy review, councillor expenses. There is a recommendation. Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Potten? Have a seconder? Councillor Reid? No discussion?
Just a brief question. Shouldn't we all be excusing ourselves?
Declaring an interest, I think so. We'll make an exception on this. Councillor Reid?
I don't know.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Code of conduct review, 613. Again, there's a recommendation, pretty straightforward. Councillor Turner, Councillor Burgess. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Six 14, code of meeting practice. Again, there's a recommendation.
I'll move them.
Councillor Reid, Councillor Potten. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare it carried. Public art policy. There is a recommendation. Councillor Potten. Have a seconder? Second. Councillor Turner. Any discussion? Motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Policy review outdoor eating and signage. Councillor Cameron.
No, I'm asking a question, sorry.
We have a,
Yeah, sorry.
someone like to move?
I'll move.
Councillor Reid. Councillor Turner. Thank you, Councillor Turner. A question from Councillor.
Yeah, a couple of questions directed to the General Manager, Mr Mayor, thank you, if I can. I find it a little bit strange that a development consent is being used in regard to this issue. The first question is, do other local councils use this for this particular type of purpose?
Short answer is yes.
All
but a lot of councils will do it on an individual business by business basis. So there'll be multiple, there could be multiple consents, separate consents related to different premises along the main street. Several years ago, this council made a decision that as an economic development incentive to get people to use the outdoor space, that we would, if you like, take that administration away from the business operators by getting a consent for outdoor dining, for those A-frame advertising signs that you see down the street, and for some of those premises that actually display goods on the pavement. So we got one consent for the whole of the main street. Basically, that consent includes some options for how people where they will place the signs or where they'll place the outdoor furniture, so that they can rely on the consent that's issued. The consent runs with the land, it doesn't run with the business, and it just makes it easier for them. It's one less thing that they need to worry about in terms of getting paperwork organised. So we did that as a bit of an economic incentive to encourage outdoor dining, and I think it's been relatively successful.
Okay. You mentioned the land, we're talking the footpath?
Yep.
So who owns that? Who's responsible?
We're responsible for the footpath area as part of the road reserve. So the development consent is actually an integrated consent. It is an approval under both the planning legislation for use of the land and the Roads Act for the placement of structures on the road within the road reserve.
The issue that comes up is really about public liability. I would imagine that all the businesses would have public liability.
Correct.
We would hope. I'm not sure if we check that. But couldn't we be actually liable in certain circumstances? Seeing that we've got the consent there rather than the individual policies?
The idea is that each business house carries their own public liability insurances. They just extend it to include the footpath area if they're using it. That's up to about $20 million public liability, which is pretty much a standard these days. The issue is if with any litigation, the companies the solicitors and legal teams that you see floating around touting for business, they take a shotgun approach. They name everybody they can possibly think of, and they go through the process, and usually it's the last man standing. Is there a risk to council? Yes, there is, because we're always the last person. We can't go bankrupt and fold up and disappear off the planet. We exist. We exist forever. So there's always a risk, but the risk is minimised if the shopkeepers have that public liability insurance, and it's one of the conditions of the consent that they are to maintain that public liability insurance for both their premises and the area they occupy.
Okay. I'm just seeing where it is up here. The financial implications, can I see that up here?
No.
It's in the report.
Oh, right, okay, but the financial says it's a way of saving on manpower use or labour use. So it's, the policy doesn't have any impact.
No, the policy, the preparation and maintenance of policies requires staff time.
Right.
So if we don't have the policy, this is what the recommendation is.
Yeah.
There's no staff time. It's an efficiency saving for staff. They can go and do other policies and focus on those instead of this particular one.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron, against? I declare the motion carried. Policy review asbestos guidelines. There is a recommendation. Councillor Reid, Councillor Potham. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. 618. Sustainability Policy
So
Advisory Committee.
there's an officer recommendation, but there's also an alternate motion from Councillor Cameron.
All right, I'm just.
Okay, do you want to move your alternate
Yep.
recommendation, Councillor Cameron? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Reid? Okay, any discussion?
I'm really happy to move this motion as an alternative. I think the original statement that came out from the work that had been done by council, which I do appreciate, was somewhat narrow in its scope, and I think the terms of sustainability, I think we have to have a sort of basically a fairly broad brush to have a look at what sustainability is about. And as I have said previously, I was very impressed with the Parkwood presentation on the other day, a couple of weeks ago, where basically they had a really good idea of sustainability, and they were talking about for their future community, which is going to be part of Yass Valley, a very clear idea of what sustainability meant and how it interrelated to a number of different sort of areas. So I thought that that was something that really changed my mind about offering an alternative to the previous recommendation. So I think this is a much broader one. I think it gives us some food for thought. It's important to take action on a broad front so that we can have a serious impact both within the council and also within the community. And without being too negative, I think the previous Sustainability Community Council that this council had some lofty objectives but didn't achieve a great deal. With the draft consultant's report in regard to the community strategic plan, they pointed out a couple of things, and I think the third criticism was in terms of sustainability policy. That was sort of missing in terms of the council. And I think the first item that was mentioned was governance and civic leadership. I think if we adopt the terms of reference that we've got up there, we're going to hit two criticisms with one go. And I think that the first criticism is we're not doing enough about sustainability. And secondly, I think we're showing clear civic leadership. And I think that's important as this new council attempts to establish a much better relationship with the community and be perceived as a body that really is trying to make a difference for the community and the people who live in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron.
Through Mr Mayor, just a couple of comments. Just with broadening the scope of the terms of reference for for sustainability, we had nominated in there the Biodiversity and Sustainability Officer to run it. But remember, that was when the original proposal recommended by the staff was to focus on environmental sustainability rather than a much broader thing. We'll obviously, I mean, I've got to work out which staff are going to be appropriate to support this group if it goes ahead. So just highlighting that for you, that we might have to make an administrative adjustment in there about which staff are going to be supportive of the committee. The other thing is, in terms of the membership, I'll just let you know how we're going with our recruitment for existing committees that council's already decided on. It's not going great. We're not getting very many people coming forward. So with a group of 7 to 10, that might be a bit of a struggle, but that's the way you want to go. We'll certainly try and recruit for for that number. Just remembering that all committees have the ability to use working parties and bring people in on an as-need basis as well. And I guess the third point I just wanted to point out as well is that the introduction of sustainability into all of Council's policies and operations always has to be done in the context of your available resources. So at the end of the day, it's always good to be aspirational, I get that, but at the end of the day, the delivery will always be constrained by whatever budgetary provisions you put aside for whatever the initiatives are that come out of it. So I don't think that any of those points need to go in there. I just wanted to make you aware of them, that's all.
So just what, yes, Councillor Cameron? Just what, by way of clarification, if we've got the committee with membership of 7 to 10, what happens if we get 4 nominees?
Well, you don't meet your terms of reference. You've either got to change your terms of reference,
Right, so it has to come back to.
it would have to come back to council. But that's okay, because when we do the recruitment process for committee people for all of our committees, they come back to council anyway. So if let's say we only get 4 for the sustainability committee, what you could do is accept those 4 if they're suitable, and then you could adjust the terms of reference at that particular point in time, so that you're not in breach of your own rules.
Councillor Reid.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Cameron, I'd be prepared to reduce the number from 7 down to 4 or 5, given the circumstances. If we can't get enough people in the core to get the committee going, then the whole thing will collapse. Whereas if we have, say, 4 or 5 people, key people, we should be able to co-opt people in as and when they're required. The abilities help. So I will be happy to second a change to that if you're willing to.
No, I'm not.
Change it.
Okay, yeah.
Are there any speakers against the motion? Okay.
All right, just to make a final statement. Thank you, General Manager, for making the comment about the staff person involved with this committee. You're right. I had a look through that. Most of the other committees, including the Public Art Group, have directors on them, or the General Manager. So it would be great if we had somebody at that level being represented on that particular committee. Yeah, I can understand why people are reluctant to come forward for committees, but I think I'm optimistic. I think people really want to do something about sustainability. They want to make a difference in the community, and I think I'll be surprised if we're not flooded with people trying to get onto this particular committee. I think the other thing that we should be realising as well, and I've noticed this recently when I've been up at the museum and having people come through for the current exhibition, which I'm advertising at the moment. You know, we're getting people who are new to the community, who are coming out of Sydney and Canberra. They've just moved into Yass. And these are younger people, not just tree changers like myself, but these are younger people who are working hard and are committed to a lot of different things. So I'd like to be optimistic. If I'm proven wrong, Mike, or Councillor Reid, I'll accept that. But I think we've got to work on the basis of being optimistic. And I think, as I mentioned the other day, I think the fact that people can be involved in this community via Zoom means that people in Gundaroo, in Ware Jasper, in Sutton, and Bynalong and Bounding can be involved without having to travel for every meeting. And I think that should make a big difference. Obviously, it hasn't made a big difference to the ones you mentioned, but I'm optimistic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Those in favour? Okay, those against? Declare the motion carried.
Thank you.
Item 6.19.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to move 19 through 23 be moved into confidential and considered in closed meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Seconded, Councillor Burgess. We don't need any discussion to that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Through Mr Mayor, just can we maybe add the late report to that as well?
Sorry.
Just,
Yes.
Yes, we need it.
Item 00.
Thank you.
0.0.
Okay, I'll put the motion now. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Next item to be dealt with is the minutes of the Local Rescue Committee, Local Emergency Management Committee, held on the 22nd of February. And a separate motion to all these, Mr General Manager?
Yeah, it would
Okay.
be the easiest way to do it.
Okay, the recommendation,
Just for noting.
I'll move.
Councillor Burgess, Councillor Potham, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Minutes of the Coppabella Wind Farm Consultative Committee.
Yep.
Moved Councillor Turner, seconded Councillor Burgess. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Minutes of the Country Mayors Association. Councillor Reid, Councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Just on that, the chair of the Canberra Region JO, Russell Fitzpatrick from the Mayor of Bega, has also been elected to the executive of the Country Mayors as well. So we've got a line of sight through to the executive.
Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Minutes of the Traffic Management Committee held on the 16th of March. There's a number of recommendations. Someone like to move the recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Abbey, Councillor Cameron. Any questions? Not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Okay.
Just now need a motion to
Need to move
Closed session.
Move that we move into closed session.
Thank you, Councillor Turner, Councillor Burgess, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Okay.
just close the meeting to the public now, and so we can go into the closed session.
Everyone in the public gallery can now